Yeah, so first, no, I'm missing something. Yeah, so we have here Yeseul Song. Yeseul is a South Korean-born NYC-based artist who uses technology, interaction, and participation as I have it here. As so he uses this media as art media to uncover creative possibilities of non-visual senses and creates new sensory languages. With the belief that art needs to be accessible to everyone, she explores and occupies non-traditional public spaces to challenge commonly held ideas about access and accessibility of art. Her interactive artwork has been commissioned, funded, supported, and showed internationally. Yeseul is an artist assistant art professor at NYU Tisch School of the Art in the programs of Interactive Telecommunications Program and Interactive Media Arts. Her teaching areas span interactive art, participatory art, physical computing, and sustainable materials. Yeah, so that's the intro, and then here we have Yeseul.
Oh, hi everyone. And very nice to see you all, and thank you for coming today. And I'm very excited to meet I Embody Lab. And thanks Eover for the very kind invite and introduction. I will share concepts around art and technology and body and invisible things around my artwork that I have been developing for the last few many years. So here we go. Oh, sorry. Need to share the sound. There will be some sound. Okay, can you see? Okay, cool. Well, I titled my talk Feeling and Perceiving with New Sensory Language. Yeah, I'm joining from New York. It is 10 a.m. today. Very nice weather. I know in Spain it's more in the afternoon. Hope to visit there sometime. So I work at a department called ITP, which Seo must be familiar with, and MH must be familiar with too. And there are some people joining from my department today as well. Thank you. So it's a department studying art and technology and design and the intersection through creative practice. And the area that I am in charge of and focus on is physical computing, which is about using electronics and sensors and actuators and programming to create a physical interactive system for artistic and design uses. I teach a class called Intangible Interaction and Interaction as Art Medium, project development studio focused on physical installations, and also sustainable material research lab. Because in physical and fabrication and digital device making, we use a lot of acrylics. So I've been fostering a research to find alternatives. So we are mostly a graduate program, but we also have a new undergrad program started like 5 years ago, 6 years ago maybe. So I teach in both places. So I will jump into my work. I think I can categorize into these 3 categories. So I will go one by one. The first one is that I use interaction as art medium. Many people say that they use technology as art medium. I use technology, but I think interaction and participation is at the core. So I frame that way. This is a work that I created in 2016. It was pretty early work that is a light bulb that is following you. So it's a mechanical system and then you are being sensed where you are, and you will just walking in the space, and at some point something is weird and then you look up and then there is a light. That's when I started working with technology as an artistic medium. And I was thinking, people have binary feelings. People are fascinated by technology, but at the same time, people are afraid of it, like surveillance issue and things that we are not being able to control. So I wanted to express a binary feeling through an object that is creepily following you, but it's actually a somewhat positive object, which is light. And this is a work in collaboration with Haiyan Huang, who is my friend and also an artist. And we created this piece called Light Experiments Mirages. And it's an illusion of light from a DMX light motorized fixture. So depending on how you're moving, you will be able to change the size, or like it will follow you. It will feel like the moon is following you. And when you start moving more dynamically, I wonder if I can move this play bar, sorry. Yeah, we were here. When you start moving dynamically, it will start acting like a bouncy ball. So you can play with it. And I mean, kids are always really good audience of interactive art. They don't need any instruction. They just jump right into it and then know what to do. This was called Rice Steamer. And it is a interactive system where you will move rice grains one by one to a tray. And as you do it, you will slowly dim up the light. So you probably have turned on and off the light many, many times today, which is a very mundane interaction. But I wanted to insert an interactive and meditative and cultural experience within that like very mundane moment of interaction. So it can take like, I don't know, 5 minutes to like a few hours to really turn on the light by doing so. And it was shown in a very busy gallery. But people came and that they really took time doing it, sort of make a very peaceful and meditative moment. Some people got very competitive, so they came back so many times to do it like quicker and quicker. And I mean, living in New York, as a person who's not from here, there's always a lot of disparity in the society. So this is in a way that the people who are from a culture who are used to chopstick and grain will have an advantage in turning on light, which is a very mundane activity. So I was trying to make a critic with this work as well. So you'll realize that many of my work was using light, which I was really fascinated by, and I still really love working with light. But at the same time, I feel like the visual art is like somewhat limited, and we are not really unlocking enough parts of our body or sensory system. And around the time, I was exposed to this fascinating poster, which is about electromagnetic spectrum, which is a very fundamental theory in science. And they claim that everything in the world is made of different frequency, and like gamma ray and x-rays and everything is here. So if you like wave your hand in the air, you feel like you're grabbing nothing, but actually there are a lot of signals, especially these days, a lot of different frequency of signal and air and dust. Those things we are not really capturing at all. And I felt like, so this colored area is the only visible spectrum in that electromagnetic spectrum. So I wanted to expand the medium of media art into something outside the visual spectrum. Because a lot of media art is, when people think about it, it's like, oh, really spectacular LED wall or really immersive projection. But if you close your eyes, you can actually see anything. And I feel like that's really removing other senses. So I started doing research and experiment in non-visual experience. The first one started with durian fruit, which is a very spiky fruit, very delicious fruit, but it has a very stinky smell when it's really ripe. So I got them. It was sitting in my emergency staircase because otherwise I wasn't able to keep it at home. And then I opened this in a box, and my roommate at the time was very unhappy because this was very smelly. And then I brought that to Grand Central Station, which is a very busy station in New York. and stay there for a few hours, avoiding the police. I was just like discreetly holding this fruit in my hand and like walking slowly, and people started avoiding me. They recognized, oh, like what is the smell? Where is this coming from? And some people were rather polite. Some people were like, oh, I'm not gonna be here, so I will run away. So I was able to create an empty space in the very busy station for a few hours while I was having a very bad headache. That was a smell sculpture, which became the first invisible sculpture. And that this was my very initial drawing. I was imagining, can I make some sort of a form with signal, like a Wi-Fi signal or something that we cannot really capture. So this was an initial drawing. And after a few iterations, I married with this idea of there are empty podiums when you enter a space. So you will be like, oh, what's happening here? But they are actually sculptures made of sound, heat, and air and smell. So that was 2018. And after many iterations and research, I was able to put it together as a whole show at Clay Art Museum in South Korea. It was a really lucky opportunity where I was able to really realize my vision of literally empty display shelves and podiums in a space. And people will be curious what's going on, but there are sculptures, forms that you can perceive.
그게 아무것도 없는데 그거를 보라고 하니까 좀 웃겼어.
So this was a kid giving a very philosophical comment, and it was funny that they asked me to see something when there was nothing, but when they tried to see, there was something. This was a sound sculpture. It's hard to show on video, but I will try to show you how it works. Yeah, so in the hole there is a 3D form sculpture, and when we touch something, we usually get feedback on our hand. When it's like the tactile thing, but in this case, instead of you are getting feedback through your hand, you are getting feedback through your sound, through the ear. So you get to incorporate your senses to be able to perceive the sculpture. I think some of you in this room actually experienced the very first version of it. And I remember Mel feeling layer by layer like this. So everyone has a different way of perceiving this. And so the second one is a worm sculpture. So it's a blob of worms that you can feel sort of a boundary between like colder air and warmer air. And by interacting with it through your hand, you are able to perceive the form. And usually people move very slowly like this. I love hiding in the space and like seeing what people do with it. People would sort of move slowly, unlike when we go to galleries or museums full of paintings, we usually just like sort of like look through and think that we saw everything, but actually that's not. So when there is nothing to see, there was nothing that is giving you an illusion of, oh, I saw everything. So people become humble with their senses, I think. And many people close their eyes, even though I or the museum staff doesn't instruct to close their eyes, realizing that seeing actually doesn't help at all seeing the work. And maybe it's better for focusing or awakening other senses. Yeah, she was very lovely. And just some people, you have to just like break the idea of like everyday senses, because you have to incorporate your senses to perceive something that is very new. So some adults have hard time understanding or what to do, but I observed that kids really have no psychological barrier to the new ideas, so they will just observe and know what to do. So there was also a heat camera to sort of indicate where the sculpture might be, for those who might be a little bit too frustrated that there is nothing to see. And air sculpture is made of like very focused ultrasonic beams, so you can feel the vibration in the air like a floating pixel. And the museum worked with the local visually impaired communities to invite them to the museum for a workshop, and we did a programming around them, and I met with them. They usually have a very negative relationship to the museums because they have to go there as a part of some program, but they only get taken picture of, but they cannot really see and cannot touch and even cannot speak. So people have a very angry relationship with these institutions. So it was very hard for the museum to invite them over. But when they came, they were actually really happy and wanted to have more events or shows like that. And I felt really humbled as well. And this was a Tao sculpture, while the other sculptures can be experienced through some sort of senses, but Tao sculpture is like totally through your reasoning. So you are hearing the sculpture shape and like history of it and how it's made, and it's like dripping from the bottom. And you will envision the sculpture in the squared area. Squared and illuminated area. So this might be, if it was just a standalone piece, this might not be, like some people might be like treating as a joke, but because it was curated in a way that people experience the concept through like experiential way, it was really there. And then after that, when they got to the Tao sculpture, they were able to appreciate the concept in a more deep way. This was a decision made by the curator of the museum, and I think it was really well done. And I was curious what people saw in invisible sculptures. So I invited them to make what they saw with a piece of clay, the same amount of clay everyone got. And they will label them. This says 소리, which means sound. So it's a sound sculpture. They will label what sculpture they made and then place them on the shelf. And it was a 5-month show. So like really thousands of clay sculptures were gathered over the 5 months. And I also showed in other places. So I have boxes and boxes of these sculptures with me, which are really precious. And I really love how people are having conversation about, what did you see? And they were very interested in other people's perception, as opposed to if we saw an elephant, that's of course an elephant, not a giraffe. So people will fight over an answer. But when there is nothing to see and hold on to as a truth, people are so open in their conversation. So that was my favorite part of it. And this is the only visual representation of the whole project, which is made by visitors, really precious. So it became a visual identity that is collectively, sort of a collective perception of invisible sculptures. And they were fired into ceramics so they can be preserved. I have information about who made what for some of the sculptures, and it's still on my list. I want to analyze them and use them to like study people's perception, what makes difference, what makes people see the same thing. To show some of them, this is a worm sculpture, the second one, the one that little kid was seeing. So you can see there is a trend in terms of the proportion and the volume, but you will also see a little bit of difference depending on how people experience them. And some people just become creative. So this person, instead of replicating the shape of their sculpture, they try to replicate their feeling when they were experiencing it. They thought it's like very explosive and very energetic vibrations of pixels. So this is how they express. And I love inspiring people in my education work and also in artwork. It's important for me that I keep creating and I inspire myself, but the most rewarding point is when I see other people becoming artists and being inspired. I think everyone can make art, and art can really do good thing for individual life, but not everyone has a like proper opportunity to do it. So I love seeing those moments. And the next chapter is about where I love showing. I show in like institutions and museums and galleries, but I love going to unconventional spaces and bringing things there. This is was during the pandemic, and it was very frustrating because shows were canceled and I lost my studio. Just sitting in my room with a lot of like stuff. So I decided that I will make a card and bring it to outdoors. So some footages. This was how I started in East Village. I brought it to a park. And the park was actually pretty like not like usual, but it was nice to see the space being activated when I bring those. I did it in like maybe 6 or 7 different times in all different parts of the city and also in Korea. And when I show or like go to galleries or like art spaces, especially in New York, the entrance fees are like $30 and $40. And there is always a particular type of people who are coming to see that, who can afford the time and money and just like room in their mind. But when I brought that to outdoor spaces, it's really literally everyone who can come to the park or come to the street. So I was able to meet a really wide range of people, and I really appreciated that part. People who would never come to the museum, or they think art is not their thing, but a lot of people were there, and I love meeting people through my work, as you can tell. So that was actually a pretty pivotal moment in my work. And since then, I've been always bringing things outdoors, even when I'm in the process or after completing them. And this project is, if the public space street was very public space, and this is a very private space. It was also during pandemic. I think pandemic really changed our relationship with our private space as well. Like teaching from home and like my private space became something like well known to the world. I guess now it's like that too. So I installed sensors, like motion sensor or distance sensor that are easily used in physical computing. And I live with a sensor for like a few months. And I collected data of my everyday life because I was mostly at home at the time. It was very scary to go out at the time. And my movement was all tracked through these very mundane sensors. And I made a sound installation with 5 speakers that is playing different sound of my mundane life, like sleeping or typing, based on the data they collected. So it was sort of a generated soundscape of my mundane life, but I was not there, but it's sort of like I'm there. So I had the portrait in my room, and I invited people who I don't really know, only people who I met like in a big Zoom meeting, like how we are meeting right now. And I emailed them, oh, if you want to come, you can come. So this was the instruction. They will just like just come into my apartment without like direct percept my I will without my consent in some way, but actually I gave them a consent. So they will buzz to my apartment, they will come up to the floor, and then the door is already open. So they will take off their shoes and then open my room, and then they will enter. So imagine that you're entering a stranger's apartment and room and spending like 30 minutes there. And I was actually hiding in my roommate's room at the time. So people will enter and they will spend time in the room. And I also asked them to, if you want to take a picture, you can take pictures, and that can be a documentation. And then there was a clock that is running at very fast speed, developed by my friend Arnav. And so you will experience my whole day within 30 minutes. And after that, you can take a look at the data to make sense of the soundscape, what is going on. So it's a very weird experience that you're in stranger's room and you can like access drawers and everything. And then you also have this like very intimate data of someone taking a shower, like when they go to sleep, which can actually reveal like very private or precarious moments if you really put together a puzzle. And then after that, people will come out and then I will meet them for the first time. That actually started with a project with the NYU Law School to make the point that the physical computing sensors, those distance sensors, presence sensors, don't have any privacy policy around them. So you can use in whatever way. But if you make an extreme case of that sensors, you can actually reveal a lot of private information from a person. So I was creating a like very extreme situation with the sensors and making a contrast between me, like very vulnerable with my data, and a stranger just coming into my apartment and then have all access. And then the project that probably will be the most relevant to what the lab is doing might be this. It is so I think a lot about like invisible existences. Invisible sculpture was in the format of form, and then I also think a lot of what's between people. Have any of you experienced like someone looking at you from the back? And then you are actually not looking at the back, you can just feel it. Yeah, it's so weird. The gaze is so weird. Even in very busy subway, if someone is like looking at me, I can just sense even when I'm looking at my phone. And I also say I feel like different people's body emit different energy that we can feel. Just like when I meet someone for the first time, I can tell a lot of information just by like being around their body. So I was thinking, what if people can hear and tangibly feel each other's aura and energy? And what if people communicate through their energy instead of words? So I created this word for strangers. So instead of having a verbal interaction with a stranger, this was created for a public show at Herschel Museum. So it's like everyone come and they don't know each other. So I pair people up and people will just use their body, and the sound and the vibration will change depending on how they are moving, how close they are, and which direction they're facing. So this was an interview from a couple. Hopefully this will show a little bit what it's like to experience.
Doing whatever the weird dance was we were doing. It exploded. It was like, oh my God. Oh my God. It's very intense, and I was not expecting it. We made music. We made music.
okay with being this vulnerable with you, and this is what it's like. It just opened up a portal into like how we really feel about each other, like so something that we've never even explored. Like we knew that we love each other, we knew that we want to be with each other, but like this just gave us another way of like seeing what.
Yeah, they were actually like crying while experiencing. There were some other couples doing that. I initially created for strangers, but many couples or families tried. So that was a very memorable and honorable moment for me. And then I when I make work and bring it to people, it connects people. It creates a lot of energy, and then we get to connect with each other. We feel very close, but at the same time, I feel like it's really a one-off thing. So I wanted to have a more sustained relationship, and spend more time with the same group of people. So last summer, I worked with Wonyoung and Suhe, who is a dancer with disability and a cultural producer, to bring this to the youth with disability or like youth outside the school. So we work with about like 10 people at Liu Museum in Korea, and they didn't know each other. And we, Wonyoung, who's in the photo here, I don't know where mouse is, but Wonyoung created a lot of movement exercise, so people can like get introduced to each other. And then we didn't really talk a lot. We only gave names to each other, and then didn't really talk about where we're from, which school we went to, which is very important in Korea, and what's your background. We really got to know each other through like bodily movement. And then people also experience this work to connect with other people through like little weird sensory experience. And then on the third day, they created a performance with it, like in groups of 4. And they made the stories, and they thought about how they will make the sound, what type of music they want to create through the cape. So every team made a performance, and we also did like a sort of critique of it, and it was really amazing. Even though we didn't really talk to each other, everyone at the end were like really vulnerable about their weakness or their pain, by connecting through this body, which is a very unusual experience. So I saw a possibility in like how amazing and how we are missing from only having a lot of verbal peer expression, but not a lot of bodily connection. So I am hoping to further research in that. And I'm sure your lab does this type of work, or work in this area in a more academic and very deep way. So I am really looking forward to learning more about your work too. And yeah, I brought it to like a lot of spaces, and this was particularly memorable. This was at an old school building, PWA, Public Works Administration, nonprofit art organization in Brooklyn, took over this space, and I did some activation and performance for people. And during the show, the ceiling started leaking and it became like a waterfall, which turned out to be from like a bathroom upstairs. So like all crazy things happened in the journey of making and showing this type of work. And some ideas and research that inform this work are a lot. So for example, subtle body is a quasi-material aspect of human body that appears in Taoism and Dharmic religions, and it indicates bodies that are neither solely physical or neither solely spiritual, in contrast to mind-body dualism that has dominated the Western thought. So I wanted to see if we can hear these subtle bodies. That's how it started. And in this research, they are talking about peripersonal space. So the space surrounding a body is called peripersonal space, and enabled by visual tactile senses, which is it's a tactile sense, but even if you're not really touching, they have eyes so that they can feel something from a distance. Things like, oh, someone is looking at me and I can see from the back. So they are describing it as a peripersonal space, and the yellow area surrounding them is what people perceive as their extension of their body. So you can see how the two hands are intersecting, and then their peripersonal spaces are intersecting. So when you hold someone's hand, you can sort of feel like you're entering the other person's space. And this is another psychological study that have shown that some visual tactile brain areas respond to other people's peripersonal space as well, just like they would their own, which suggested how our bodies and senses are connected to each other. This was an experiment that there are two people across the table, and there is a moving circle that is supposed to be a danger object. So if it's landing on your hand or the other person's hand, you're supposed to press a button to prevent the danger. And between strangers, the result was showing that even if it's the other person's body, you would respond as quickly as you do to your body. So I feel like this type of studies show how two bodies are really connected to each other, and that partially informed my work as well. And the last part, this is my recent experiment during the spring break. So I brought this work to the ice. So that was how, with distance. I brought it to the ice because I got into figure skating these days, and that was the playtesting with my coach. And the movement dynamics were just so different on the ice, the scale of it, the speed of it. So when people experience my work or other interactive work, people constantly move their bodies and perceive, and this is like a cycle of moving and perceiving. I guess our bodies are doing that in our everyday life too. And I have been exploring many different ways of perceiving, but I haven't explored the movement itself yet. So yeah, last year I started figure skating, and it's a very challenging sport, especially for adults to learn. So my coach always tells me not to think on the ice, because when you think, you stall and you become slow. However, being on the ice is very inspiring to me mentally. So I love thinking on the ice. It's inspiring mentally as well as physically, and it has opened a new door for me to think of movements that are far more complex and dynamic compared to walking or moving on the ground. So it has its own vocabulary, it has its own physics and definition of what is good. So being on the ice is sort of like being on a different planet. So for example, let's watch this video together.
Enjoying some of those soundtracks again. Inside sound, outside sound.
So for example, if you made a correct movement by listening to the sound of blades, and here, depending on which part of blade you are using, the sound is very different, and you're supposed to make a very particular sound to be able to make the correct movement here.
More power to bring it back in. And when you're doing that, you want to make sure that you can hear that rip in the ice, and it should sound really nice. Honestly, it should sound like music to your ears. But what we're going to do is we're going to do our...
So you probably heard this like ripping.
Or power to bring it back in. And when
That sound is very hard to make because you need to be on a very deep edge and have a very high pressure on a certain point of the blade. But yeah, I was amazed that in skating, you have to listen to the sound to be able to know what you did in your.
Enjoying some of those sounds.
So my coach will just like will not see and then just hear the sound and can tell what I'm doing. And another thing is that unlike in our everyday movement on the ice, every single movement leaves a trace. So you cannot move without a trace, and each movement makes some changes to the ice. So left image is from a spin that I did recently, and I took a photo of it because I was like nicely centered. And the right side image is an analysis, very nerdy analysis of two different jumps. Lutz, which is one way of jumping. And the right side is flutz, which is a combination of flip and lutz, and they are describing as a wrong way of doing lutz. So it's the tracing part is very unique to the ice. And there are this type of drawings that I find really beautiful. This is for a test called Moves in the Field. It's about how you are supposed to move on the ice to be able to make the right pattern. So it will tell you like right back outside, left forward inside that. So use this part of blade to be able to skate this way. And then you have to like follow the pattern to like pass a test or do a competition. And I love the tracing of this movement that we don't really think about what trace we left when we are moving. Maybe you can do it when you go home today, what tracing you're making. So yeah, these are quite aesthetically beautiful and very inspiring to me. And yeah, and the peripersonal space on the ice, I found it very different from my play testing. It enlarges as a speed comes in, so it's very it's a unique in a way that it's amazing when people are like maybe 30 people are on the small ice and they are like all really competitive skaters, so they move so fast, but they are not bumping into each other. That is always really amazing to me. So this is a video that is by my friend and amazing artist Noon, and she took a drone video of people skating at a ice rink in New York in Brooklyn. So yeah, it's just yeah, I'm through my ice skating in terms of my interest in my body and movement. I'm learning and researching through also using my body and observing other people. And I plan to further explore this artistically as well. So yeah, I like making things that are humane and soft, using digital technology, which is very logical and somewhat mechanical. So I don't like, I like hiding all the technologies so people can focus on themselves and their experience and artistic message as it is, rather than sort of being distracted by technology. So that's the aesthetic and direction that I want to pursue through my work. And yeah, that was what I prepared for today. I have more projects, but you can take a look at them on my website if you're curious of more of them. I announced my like event or showings or something that you could be a part of, and I will send invites on my Instagram, and that is my handle. So yeah, thank you for listening. And if you have any questions or if you're working on research that is relevant to any of this part, I would love to hear about it.
Okay, first of all, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's super inspiring and interesting. I mean, you said that you thought that maybe those two subtle bodies would be most relevant, but I think all of what you told us about is super inspiring and relevant. I don't know if, I mean, I talked with Yeseul. I don't know if you have questions, comments. Also, like in the people that are online, you can like raise the digital hand. We can hear move the so the camera is a mic. So
Oh, it is. Well,
I mean, it's not.
yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, like, thank you, because I actually did mention your work in my, I mean, we're still working on it, but the idea of recreating your experience with the clay, because we are working on sort of qualitative ways that people would, we would use to measure how people's personal spaces, their sensations of it change. So that was always something, since I actually experienced your work in your thesis back in the day, I always had it in my mind of like something like that would be maybe a good way to sort of measure qualitatively or quantitatively even, because I mean they're like now objects you can measure. But yeah, thank you. Your work has always been inspiring. So I don't have a question, but yep. Right?
Cool.
Oh, there's a hand.
Yeah, Denise. Denise ready her hand. Denise, go.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. I will comment one to I leave one comment for MH. Thank you, MH. And yeah, this clay making thing, it's like sort of a form of data collection if it were to research. I also have 3D scanned them, hoping to like average them or doing something with it. But yeah, I started scanning maybe like 20 and then I wasn't able to continue after. I also made people draw before. And yeah, those things, I don't know how accurate they are, but I guess no perception is really accurate. So maybe, yeah, I'm curious to see what are other ways in research. So yeah, Dennis.
I thank you so much. This was great. I have a question regarding the invisible sculptures using temperature. I don't know how much I can see that you also collect lots of information from the visitors, which is amazing. And I'm interested in knowing whether you had any reports or on whether they felt that it's their body that it's changing temperature or the outside, because they were trying to, well, I guess in the sculptures, they're trying to understand the shape through the contrast between heat and cold. But did at any point they felt that it's their body changing temperature, or is it the surrounding changing temperature?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. I mean, I assume that also the space temperature changes too. So maybe his sculpture is never fixed and they're moving. And it's very true that in relative to everyone's body temperature, it will feel differently too. So maybe that's why his sculptures were like sort of a similar volume, but also different in a way. And also our memory fades away when it's about tactile thing. So yeah, I mean, I didn't really think about it in a very logical way of like what will happen when people's body temperature change. It was more, I approached it in more conceptually. But that's a very, very interesting question. I guess there is a way of also inserting something in between based on each person's body temperature. Maybe the heat is also interacting with them. So yeah, for example, to make people feel the exact same perceived temperature, like depending on their body temperature, how the temperature of the sculpture should be different. These type of things all are, I think, will be really fascinating research questions. But the heat was like also actually something that I'm not really like good at like dealing with like technically, and I am interested in finding more ways of like making a very more elaborate his sculpture, or maybe they're even interactive. But for me, it was satisfactory as a more of a conceptual form that I did not have the static objects.
I don't want to take over everything, but just one quick question about the vibration. And this is due to my ignorance on the subject. How do you induce the vibration? Is it just through sound, or is there? How do you do that?
Yes, so the vibration they are basically ultrasonic elements, and they can output frequency that is pretty focused. When we hear as a speaker, it's sort of like that, but when you have you heard like those directional speakers? That like directional speaker, when they become extreme, you can sort of feel like the like energy coming out of it, and when you focus them, like many beams of them, you can feel them more intensely in the air. So they were like the ultrasonic arrays that are creating the sensations.
Very cool. Thank you. I really would like. Do you think at any point that exhibition will come to London?
Yeah, I love to. I mean, I'm showing the sound sculpture again at the Middlebury Art Museum in Vermont in the US. And interestingly, they wanted to acquire the sound sculpture, which I feel very honored, but it's funny that I'm selling a visual sculpture in a way. But yeah, hopefully I will have a chance to show in places in Europe also.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. If any of you visit Europe, please let me know. I will invite you to my office.
Hi, hello. Can you
Hi.
hear me? Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very inspiring your work. Thank you for sharing. I also share with you a link of a paper with the when you was talking about the skating experience. Is an old paper I read once. It's about like is framed in the sensory substitution. So it's kind of give you feedback to the people who is skating through sounds. So maybe you already know, but if you don't, you can check it. And also, I would like to share something that make me think when you are describing the thing that when people go to the museums, they just like take a look, skim the paint, and they go. And when you was explaining about this kind of a sculpture with the invisible, people stay more time like trying to figure it out. And that made me think like how the perception of time could be different depending of the sensors of the sense we use. It's an interesting framework in disability studies, a theory called creep time, in which people with disabilities, motor disabilities or mental disabilities, they kind of they perceive the time and the space in creep time. Is the name is a description of how they perceive, through this altered sensor or non-sensor sometimes. And that made me think, reflect a lot in this idea of how the perception of time could change depending of the sense we use. So thank you for that beautiful thought.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing the research. And I didn't really think to look at what research has been done in like figure skating and sensory experience. So I will take a look. And yeah, I was also feeling the sense of time really changes when you are involving other senses. And I mean, smell, like for example, you get like so overloaded. And when I was working with perfumer to like create some scent together, my sense of time will be just like totally skewed. And definitely when we are not seeing the body clock changes. So that's a very good amazing observation. Could you remind me what is it called? PU time?
Sorry?
So you mentioned the concept of time, but I didn't.
Oh, is creep time. I will write it. Sorry, creep time is the word crypt is based in cripple, in like a disabled people, but they are like it's a kind of a non-nice way to refer to disabled people. So they took that word and they changed it to creep time. So is the framework you will find many information is in disability studies.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you to you.
Hi, thank you very much. I also have a question. The microphone is on?
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
But the cable is not.
Okay, regarding the square sculpture in the museum, I remember there was a person like standing in a circle, and on top of this person there was like I understood that it was like a source of sound. Was this source like only a loudspeaker, or was it already like stereo, or there was like a quadraphonic system, some kind of multi-channel system, or only one channel? Like, are you using some kind of localization of sound to the sound emission, or just one channel? And so people should use their imagination, like to also to localize better where this sound is coming from. It was just a curiosity.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in the sound sculpture, it's just a stereo sound. So like which hand you're using can like change which way it's coming from, but it was not really localized in the spatial way. Because I don't know, I think it could be cool, but I realized that when I was trying like different ways of like giving sound feedback, it had to be a little simpler than like too complex, because people are really new to this new language of combining sound with their body movement. So when it becomes too complex, it's very hard to understand. So it can I made it complex in a way that it doesn't feel like sort of like a machine. But there was like a sweet spot between like sort of having simplicity of interaction and the complexity. So that was just a stereo sound. But I have other work. I'm very interested in sound and love working with sound. So there was like other work I created, which was called Invisible Forest. So that was empty space, and I recreated a forest through the sound. So as you walk, you will hear different parts of the forest as you walk. So you are being sensed where you are, and depending on where you are hearing different parts of the forest. Like there is a road, there is an animal, and there is a deep forest. So it's like a slow walking experience. So in that way, it was I think it was maybe like 5 or 6 channel sound experience. And a project I'm currently working on for Gansong Museum in Korea, that's gonna be like about 50 channel spatial sound work of like people's different voice, reading a text. So yeah, but in the sound sculpture, that was a headphone with stereo.
More questions, comments? Maybe?
I'll try to.
Yeah.
I'm still not sure with the subtle body project. What was the relationship between the subtle body and the sounds that they were hearing?
So the sound, I work with a sound designer friend, two friends, Greg and Jesse, and they created a bass. So it was made in a way an instrument. So it's like a digital synthesizer instrument, which is a sound design. And then they were based in the frequency where the aura is based in, like different aura has different frequency. So that was a source sound. And then using that, they layer sound and like composition, so that depending on how close or with direction or how you're moving in the space, and also your body observes different amount of signal. So depending on the signal each person is sending, it will manipulate the instrument in a way. So you are creating a soundscape together, but with the instrument that we created. So when you're far away, it will become intenser, more and more intense. And if someone is turning their back, it will become little loose, for example, and it will become intense. And if someone is coming in between, it will also be intervened. So you will really feel like you are feeling the other person's energy. And when you're very close to each other, there are some, so my concept was that people can hear each other's thoughts. So I made like many voice recordings and like sort of something feeling like you're whispering to the other person and hearing the other person's thought. So when you're like very close and like sort of almost touching each other, you will hear them and feeling more intimate.
Thanks.
I don't know if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, I mean, I guess we can close the session. Yes, I understand you have to go teaching, or something. So, but again, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It was
you.
amazing. Very inspiring. Yeah.
Thank you. It was really nice to see and chat with you all, and hope to meet you in person in the near future.
That would be nice.
Really nice.
That would be nice.
Good luck with your research and work, and bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.